Tonight, we have a demo by one of our members, Scott Royer. Scott's going to be demonstrating for us. What would you, how would you like to describe what you're going to be showing us tonight?
Well, I like to decorate things, and I like to paint things, and sometimes partially, sometimes completely. But tonight I'm going to just show how to use three really easy to use types of tools. One's a chatter tool, one's called the Wagner texturizing tool, and one is called the Henry Taylor decorating elf. And they all work in a little bit different ways, and they do a little bit different things. They're all pretty easy to use, and they can make your piece look like you've done some carving in it and spent a lot of time when you really haven't. So it's pretty easy. This is a couple. I'll pass these around. These are just a few examples of kind of things I like to do. All my boxes, when I make them, are always finished naturally on the inside. And what I do first is I'll finish them on the inside. Usually I'm using triple E polish on it, and possibly a friction polish too to bring out the luster. And then I may or may not. Now this one I've also finished the whole bottom, so I've done that all at once. The top I leave. The top I don't do any finishing to after I carve and texturize it. The otherwise what I end up doing, like here where I have done some of the texturizing on both parts, you can't really use a friction polish or anything, or a rubbing polish after you've done that, because what I use is watercolor pens, and I'll pass them around. But so I end up spray lacquer or spray something, whatever. Same thing with this. So I'll make the box. I do the inside. Now here what I've done is then I mask off the edges where I make the mortise and tenon joints, so that when I spray it, I have a spray booth in my house with a charcoal filter, so I can just spray the stuff and and then I just remove the mask. And what I usually use the mask is some blue tape or some this putty caulk that use to fix cheap windows. So, but these are just some examples. No, it's a caulking putty. You can buy at the store. It never gets really completely hard. It's kind of like a Play-Doh, whatever it is. I don't know. And but I keep balls of it, and then I've been using some of it for years. It doesn't matter if you get lacquer on it or finish on it. You just massage it, and then you can use it to make a rim around here, and so you don't spray finish on the inside when you're trying to. But this is an example I'm going to show you. I'll just pass these around. You can look at them. I do some other things with boxes that I'm not here to show tonight. Some wood burning, some completely colorizing, and then texturizing after the colorizing, but with multiple coats of like a fabric dyes. But it's something fun to do. The tools, the texturizing tools work. It looks just as nice without colorizing it, really. But I like to colorize some of them. I'm going to show you some of the tools. I'm going back here. One thing I'll mention what I've done. Am I in the right spot? Okay. Is if you look at those boxes, I pass them around. In addition to the texturizing, it looks good if you put a little border on it with a point tool. So I have a couple examples of point tools here. This lethal thing I made. It's about 30 some years old, from an old carbon steel chisel from AMT Tools in Royersford. They've been out of business for what, 20 some years.
For a close-up, hold it right in front of the headstock. Lower down, yes.
If you see the blade I put on that, it's pretty.
Yes, I can.
That thing is sharp, but it works really well. It's a big tool, but it's a big tool, but I like it because when I'm using it, I'll show you later, it's very stable to put a little tiny indentation in the wood. And one of the tools, another one of the tools I use comes as part of a kit from the Henry Taylor Elf. It's another point tool. Put on the tool rest. How's that?
A little further over.
Like that?
Yeah, good.
Yeah. That's got a 3-sided cut to a little tiny point.
How is that different from the other one?
From the other one, from the one I made?
Yeah.
Well, you can go further. You can make with the Henry Taylor, you can make a deeper shallow cut. With mine, the deeper you go, the wider the wider the cut's going to be. But mine is also more stable on the tool rest, whereas the Henry Taylor is a round rod. So you got to hold it a little bit different. They both work pretty much the same. And just by way of explanation, if nobody has ever used these, I'll come out here. You can. These are what I use to colorize these little boxes. They're just Tombow watercolor paint pens. They're two-edged.
Hold it up by your face. Good.
So it's one's a writing tip and one is a painting tip. You can do fine lines or whatever. I'll show you. We just hold it up against the thing and
Now that Tombow brand is permanent ink, isn't it?
it's pretty permanent. And I mean, it's watercolor.
Is it color stable? You don't know. You haven't kept the box long enough.
I'm one of those I passed when I was like 4 or 5 years old. That one that Doug's holding is what's it? Do I have a date on the bottom of that, Doug?
2015.
Yeah, okay.
Barry did a bit of a study on those, and I think he found that those ink colors are pretty fast.
Okay.
Yeah.
They're like $5 a piece or something. But I'm just going to pass this one around. I might use one of these other ones, one or two of these other ones, but you can rub it on your leg and get a nice color on your leg there.
For the next 6 years.
Yeah.
Nothing came on.
Yeah. But yeah, I guess they're pretty color fast. If that one's been 6 years. So with that, I'm going to show you these tools that explain there's different pros and cons. This one here is, what is this brand? The RM Woodco Deluxe Chattercool tool package from Craft Supplies. Like that?
Let me get the overhead view back.
Okay. Yeah. Well, here, I'll tell you what. How's that?
We
Got
can
it?
see it well.
Can you see it?
Yeah.
It comes with 4 different tips. And if this is a straight tip, it comes with a rounded tip. It comes with a convex tip, and it comes with a point tip. And they all do a little bit different thing. If you notice, the tips are bent. I think they're spring steel. They're basically a scraper, and they do have to be sharpened. They'll work dull, but they'll work better sharpened. So you sharpen them like a scraper. I use I have a 10-inch CBN wheel on a low speed grinder that I just hand hold and do it that way.
How do you apply that tool to the wood?
Well, that's what we're going to show. You have adjustment. What it does is it skips along the wood. It's a scraper, but it's a skipping scraper. And so you can adjust how much it skips by extending the tool, the little tool. So you have a range of extension like that to that, if that shows. I usually just use it right about there. Also, how far overhang you are on the tool rest. you want to give it lots of room to wiggle, basically. So and because the tool is angled down, it's bent, you're going to raise the tool rest a little bit higher than you might think, because you do want the cutting edge to be on center, not above it definitely, and not too far below, but it should be close to on center. Good. The chatter tool is pretty sensitive to the type of wood that you use. So it's only going to work on certain types of wood. It's got to be a fairly hard wood, but it can't be too hard. What I've got on here is cherry. It works pretty good on cherry. I had some samples I was making with maple, and maple comes in different hardnesses depending on the type of maple it is. And you get a hard maple, and this does not hardly work at all. You get a fairly soft wood, it's going to chip. You get an open grain wood, it's going to chip. So it really needs to have a closed grain, medium hardwood to work. Otherwise, it's going to not do much of anything, or it's going to tear the wood out. And it's only for end grain. You really can't use this on side grain. It's going to tear out when it gets to the side grain. So with all those limitations, it's still pretty easy to use. So I'm just going to turn the. Now I have the tool rest. Well, I'll show you. I have the tool rest fairly far away. I'm going to actually move it just a little bit further away. So I've got a lot of overhang on the tool. So I'm going to be using two hands to hold it down. Otherwise, it's going to grab the wood and go boink like that. And I like my chin in one piece, so I'm going to turn it on. And that's why they call it a chatter tool, because it chatters. I've got a fairly decent little thing in the middle. I'm gonna come along, do the outside a little bit. And I'll cut this off and pass it around, but you'll notice the further you get from the center, the wider the carving area is going to be. And also, what I should mention to you, that you want to use this at a fairly fast speed. The chatter tool wants to go a minimum of 1,000 RPMs. I have this set, I think, about 1,600 right now. Anywhere between 1,000, 3,000 RPMs, it's going to work its best. So with that, I'm going to take my little point tool and define the edge. It usually helps if you have a pencil to mark it first, but I forgot my pencil, so. Thank you, Matt. All right. And that's the chatter tool with a straight bit. Pretty much. Oops. There we go. So I'll just cut that little bit off and pass it out there. That really couldn't be a whole lot easier. All right.
Shatter tool, how much pressure were you applying? Just enough to make the noise.
I'm going to say it's hard to say. It's a a medium pressure. I'm going to say I'm not jamming it in there, but you got to give it enough pressure that it's going to make that noise. That's how you know it's working, when it's making that noise. If it's not making any noise, it's not working very well.
You ever presented that tool upside down so that it's the spring action is up toward?
I think that'd be dangerous. I'm afraid that would be dangerous, like, because I think what would happen is there's too much tendency for it to grab that.
But if you angle down,
Well,
it'd be sort of the same. Just wondered if the spring action would be different.
I don't know, because I've never done that. I've never done that.
Want a longer handle.
And of course, it's sharpened to like a scraper to use on the one side. So you'd have to resharpen it the other direction.
Right.
But and it's already angled down for you. Now, if you're using it like you propose, I don't think it's going to be able to be much of use, because it's not going to be able to bend that spring back.
Yeah.
I think it's just going to be a cutting tool, like a regular scraper at that point. But the other thing I didn't mention was after you really can't sand these things when you do it. So you've got to sand beforehand. And before we started tonight, I had already sanded that wood on the front, just down to 220. But after that, then to clean it up a little bit, this comes in handy. The dentist always gives you one. So just use that. I'm going to pass the whole thing around. Now, what I've got in here is, you all can look at the different points that are in here. You're welcome to take a look at them. The tool. If time, you can come up and try it. But what I've got here is just samples of what the different points will look like. Some are colored, some are blank. I will pass them around. But that's here. It's pretty versatile. You get a lot of nice shapes out of it, but part of the problem with the Shatter tool is if you're trying to make a number of pieces, it's not really repeatable, not easily anyway, because depending on how fast you got the lathe going and how much overhang you've got going, and depending upon how firm you are with pushing it in, and also depending upon the movement of the tool, if you're moving the tool back and forth or holding it steady, it's going to look different. But it's always interesting. It's always fun, and it's certainly easy to do.
Hey, Scott, can I add something real quick here?
You can add anything you like.
All right, to answer the question about the upside down or right side up,
Yeah.
I saw Ron Brown demo this down in Timonium a few years back,
Yeah.
and he was spot on to what you said, because someone asked him that question, can you flip it and use it the other way? What he had was,
Right.
he had sharpened, two tools, one for each orientation.
Yeah.
And the opposite of what you do gave a deeper cut, and it was not as it wasn't as refined. It almost, I think he used mahogany at the time or something along those lines, and it made a much deeper, more aggressive cut, because it was coming back. It was a stiffer punch into it. But you're right. You would have to sharpen it so that the orientation is proper.
Yeah.
Another question from the room is, what's the lathe speed and what's the range of speed that's expected?
Well, I had it set at 1600 around there for what I did. For the Shatter tool, it wants to be at a fairly high speed of a minimum of 1,000 RPMs. Anything above that, up to 3,000 or so. I generally, if I'm using it right around 15, 16, 1700, 1800 RPMs. The examples I'm passing around are all marked either on the bottom or the top that says which tip I use and also what the lathe speed was. But yeah, you use this at a fairly high speed. I'm going to round this off again and start with, so we can look at the next tool. But also, with respect to that shatter tool, I should mention it likes a flat surface or a slightly rounded surface. It does not like a convex surface. Because if you look at some of the finished box I sent around, you'll see convexes cut into it, and I use those for the ELF tool, which I'll show in a bit. But so the chatter tool wants to be a little bit rounded or flat for a top, and only on end grain. Now, the next I had, this is the Wagner. I don't know if everybody can see that. Can you see that? All right. It show up?
Can you put it closer to the paper so you can see the?
That's an early tool, basically.
It is. It's a diamond shape. It's a really heavy duty tool. It's steel. It comes in three different sizes. It comes in a 1/4 inch by, let me see, I wrote it down. I'm gonna need this again. Comes in 1/4 inch by 16 teeth per inch, 3/8 inch, which is wider, and a 3/8 by 12 TPI. This thing will work on end grain, side grain, hardwood, softwood, almost anything. It doesn't care what kind of wood you have. Doesn't care how hard the wood is. Doesn't care whether it's open grain or closed grain. And it actually works really well for bowls. For doing if you have a rim on a bowl, it works really well for that.
Scott, is that a tool designed for woodworking, or is it an knurling tool for metalworking?
No, it's designed for, it's Craft Supply sells them.
Okay.
Ron Brown sells his own brand. I don't know if they were ever designed for anything else, because I'm not a metal worker. I've never done any metalworking. I know they work really well. I'm going to put this here. I'll pass around. This is an example of how the texturing tool works on the end grain.
Yeah.
How's that? All right. It makes a nice pattern. You can hold it still and get simply a diamond pattern. You got that, Doug?
Can you address that at a 45-degree angle?
You can within the limits of it. It won't. I can do that here. In general, it's meant to be used straight on, but you can angle it some. You can you can move it. When you're using this tool, the tool rest is going to be close. So you don't. you don't want to be moving too much. You want it to be steady. If you just hold it still, you're going to get like a little diamond pattern. Can you see that? Does that show up, Doug? And I have examples of the three different tools. I only brought the one with me, but there's examples of how 3 different tools will look. So you can run it back and forth and you get a spiral pattern. Angelo.
I don't mean to interrupt your demo, but is there someone here driving a Ford Ranger? My lights are on. I just turned them off. Appreciate that.
Oh, good.
It might even show that for me.
Okay.
It's still there, so it's not locked. Now we-
I got it.
I got jumper.
So, oh, okay. That work? Yeah, okay. We'll use that. So you can use just you can get just the diamond pattern if you like, or you can get a spiral pattern by moving it back and forth, or by holding it a little bit at an angle. I'll do both here. It works really well. Tell you what, let me pass these out. And let me let's see what we do here. Also, now unlike the chattering tool, this is not meant to be used at a high speed. The Wagner tools, they tell you to use them 400 for a 2 or 3 inch box, 400, 800 RPM. And you can use it at a higher speed, I have, but if you're trying to move it along a little bit, it may catch if at higher speed and take off by itself. Like a little bit wider box than what you want. And you do want to use this tool. Usually it's going to be used on center. At least if you're doing end grain. If you're doing a side grain and you have something that's really, really hard, and that you can actually angle this tool down like this and lever it up. So if you have a really hard piece of maple, you can lever it up like that. That works really well. Matter of fact, while I'm here,
Do you make repeated passes? Or just like go around once and let it make its indentation, or how does it work?
well, you can make a pass, let it do its work. It doesn't matter if you hold it on there steady. It doesn't matter if you let it go around 1 or 5 or 10 times. It's going to be the same indentation. And if you want it to be a wider band of little diamonds, you simply move the tool over a little bit, push it in again, push it in again. If you want a spiral pattern, you hold the tool down and move it laterally as you go. It'll give you a spiral pattern. I'm going to do the side grain on this one quick. That's about as slow as it goes. I don't know if you can see that. It's a fairly. Can you see it better? Yeah, it is. And from there, I moved it side to side and give it, and on the side grain, it's just giving like little stripes coming up. Not too interesting. Reorient it to the top. There. That makes a nice. Tell you what. Does that show up better?
Doesn't show up, guys. It's just no, it's just too far away. Just too far away. Can't do it in.
We'll cut it off. You want there. I'm gonna round this back off. That's good enough. All right, that's good enough.
Ken, we could do it in one.
Does any of these tools have a CD come with them?
Well, the wood coat tool does. There's videos all over YouTube and everything else. I mean, there's even videos on how to make the darn things. So
Why don't they come with a longer handle?
you don't need a longer handle. That's why, I guess. It really wouldn't be necessary. I guess you could make one with a longer handle. Anything else? All right, well, let me move on to the little all right. To the elf. The Henry Taylor decorating elf. It's a fun little deal. I don't know. Where do you want me to? Is that? Can you see that there? Tell you what. Go the other direction. Yeah. All right. How's that? See that? Or you can't? All right. Okay. See it there. There we go. It's kind of a neat little thing. It's a tool handle with ball bearings and a magnet in it. And comes with, you can buy it as a single tool, which would just be the handle and the one little round cutting tool. Or you can buy as a kit. And with the kit, it comes with 3 different cutting edges: a cylinder, a bud cutter, or a pear-shaped cutter in the round tip. Also comes with a point tool, and it comes with this coving tool, which is supposedly it's a reverse or negative rake scraper. And there we go. This is, again, this is not used as a real high-speed tool like a chatter tool. It's more than the 800 RPM range. It is it's held a lot differently than either the chatter tool or the the Wagner tool. It's because it's cutting above the center line. And it's also cutting at an angle. So when you're holding this tool, you're not holding it, you never push it straight in. You won't get much action out of it because the ball bearings, of course, are going this way. You're holding it at an angle, so it's up above the center line. It can be way up or a little bit up. And it's also held a little bit of an angle off to the left. So you're holding it up and the left like this. It works well on side grain or end grain. It works well on flat surfaces, convex surfaces, or concave surfaces. Actually, it works really well. You make a series of little, as you saw, some of the things I sent around that were finished with little concave caves, little concave whatevers. The tool just makes a really nice mark, or you can just spiral it all the way out to the end. I have all 3 cutters, and I haven't seen a lot of difference in how they work though. They all seem to have come up with, at least with me, I get pretty much a very similar pattern off all 3. Not enough that's a big difference. Like with a chatter tool, depending on which tip you use, you can see there's a big difference in the different shapes you make. But with this, not so much. But it's a really nice, it's a really easy tool to use. It's a really fun tool to use. Let me see if I can, yeah. What do I have here? I don't want to need to pass all these around, but here. I'm just going to pass the raw ones around. I have it marked on the inside of which tip I use, the cylinder, and you can see they all look fairly similar, but it's a nice pattern, and that's a side grain, what it comes out with. It's all in there. And moderate force works well with this. You don't need to use too much force. Once I get this, there we go. So I'm going to be using this about like that. Again, you're going to have the tool rest set fairly close, and I'm angling up, and I'm angling over to the side. I'm going to make a couple cuts just on the with the convex, almost flat surface, and I'm going to concave it. Hopefully, we'll see the difference. See where I'm at here. Go on. I don't know if that shows up or not. Does that show up at all on the screen? No. I'm just gonna cut a little bit off that and try something different. Does that show up at all on the screen? It's a little bit fine. I'm gonna make another cut. All right, I'm gonna make another cut and I'll colorize it.
I think putting a dark contrast on, we'll be able to see.
Yeah, that's what I'm gonna do. Okay, put a little point on it. I don't know, does that show up at all on the screen?
Yeah, and if you take it off and hold it at right angles.
Okay,
you'll see it.
okay,
Unless you show it
okay.
right at the head stop.
I'll cut it off then. I could.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of wood left there, but you. The time you got?
52.
Okay, we'll take it off then. Yeah. Sounds like a plan. You take that, Doug.
Right in front of the chuck tool you were.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Just hold it like that.
Oh, okay.
Right there.
Rotated that you were showing it to the audience.
Like that?
Yeah. Wow. Even a little more.
Like that?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
Now we see it. Much better.
So you see how easy it is to use.
It's like a quick rose engine.
Don't say that to
I know.
It's easy to use. It's fun to use. It can make a nice decorative touch to it, to something at the top of whatever it is, a box. And I said, the side grain, end grain, the elf doesn't care which it is either, or the hardness of the wood. It's not a real expensive thing. I've had mine for a while, and I looked on the Craft Supplies and Packard sells them. I think the whole set, if you get the set with the one thing I didn't mention, it also comes with this stiff brush. So when it's on the lathe after you cut it, you run the brush over to clean out any debris. But again, you want before you do the texturizing, you want to sand down to maybe 400 grit, so it's nice and smooth. I didn't do that. I was using 180 grit to sand it. And you want to clean it off good. But
That's good there, Doug.
it makes a nice touch, whether it's painted or whether it's just left plain. But just remember, anytime you texturize something, you're going to be using a spray finish or an oil finish. That's really the only way you can do it. But okay.
Using that point tool really helps define the edges.
It-
Makes it pop.
It makes a huge difference. It makes a huge difference. You really need to. You don't need to use their point tool, but as I said, the whole set, the tool with the point tool and the coving tool, and the brush and the 3 tips is $80 from Craft Supplies. So I don't get a commission either. Any questions?
What was the name of it?
It's called the Henry Taylor Decorating Elf. My understanding is it was named after the guy that invented it. They called him the Elf because he looked like an elf. So, any questions? All right.
Good stuff, Scott. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thanks so much for everybody coming, and thanks so much, Scott, for giving us a demo tonight. Just as a reminder, next month's challenge is turning something from a demonstration. So anything you've seen, it could be one of our demos, a demo you saw online or in a magazine or wherever. And another reminder, this Thursday is coffee hour at 10 a.m. And I think that's, unless anyone has any other announcements or comments for the club, we will adjourn tonight's meeting.